road to Asia. In this episode, we want to really explain to you what Spa Essentials is, how it fits into the Pinks Boutique brand, and how it all happened, and in fact had an absolutely crucial role in the development of the Pinks Boutique skincare line. So Luke, what is Spa Essentials?
Well, Spa Essentials is the one-stop shop for all the furnishings and finishings for your spa. We don't do the couches and trolleys, but we do all of the lovely little bits that go around it, sarongs, wooden bowls, resin bowls, things that really make a difference to the client experience. The idea, like the best ideas in the world, was one that we didn't intend to have. In fact, at the time we were training at Pinks Academy, we had our students, everything was relatively simple, and then we went on holiday.
Relatively simple. We used to run a really good service business that all cash was paid up front before the students attended, and then we went on holiday.
Then
and
we
the
went on
holiday
holiday and decided to get into a stock business.
So, Spa Essentials now is a really big slice of Pinks Boutique, and it's different to the organic.
Well, it's a standalone business that supports and complements Pinks Boutique Organic.
It is different to the skincare. We supply it all over. You don't have to have our skincare ranges to be able to buy Spa Essentials. So spas with multiple brands use it. I've seen it sitting alongside many different brands, not ours, which always makes me smile like Riley. And it's predominantly sold in the UK through the big major catalogues like Ellison's, Beauty Express, Salons Direct. And we are starting to have more and more distributors in different countries as well.
Switzerland, Germany, it's very exciting.
And Ireland.
So, where does it come from and how did we get into this crazy world?
So, it's the summer of 2006.
Wow, that's over 10 years ago.
And we decided to go to Indonesia for the first time. And we booked a trip that took us, Indonesia, I'd studied at Oxford, and depending on the books you read, is between 13 to 17,000 different islands, like a big archipelago of islands. And so we had booked it so that we dotted around a couple of islands. And we arrived first in Bali.
That's right.
And
very relaxing place.
Within 5 minutes, I'd literally fallen for the place. I think it was the first time I'd been in a Hindu-based country, and I hadn't ever really been exposed to the level of ornate temples, the level of ornate ceremony and dress, the fact that there is a ceremony every hour as far as I could tell.
The people are awesome. So chilled out. So chilled out that we're doing this podcast lying on our yoga triangles in the conservatory.
Balinese beds.
Really getting into this one.
And into the holiday, I literally remember we were in Ubud, which is the
artist centre of Bali, isn't it? It's right in the middle.
A very beautiful cultural jungle
retreat.
Yeah, retreat
and the hills of Bali.
If you go, it's literally full of painting shops, gift shops, and it's surrounded by rice fields. It's a very different view of Bali, and one that shouldn't be missed. Very, very chilled. You need to put your baggy fisherman's pants on and float around.
Drinking nice Javanese coffee
or some jasmine tea.
Yeah.
And if you like nice hotels, then there is an Aman there.
Yep. We were in our last podcast, we were with Renee from the Aman talking about spa retention of staff and recruitment, and the very first Aman we saw was
the Aman in Ubud.
Yeah.
So if you haven't listened to episode 15, do so, because it is about Aman and the history of the brand, and really linking back, like Luke said, to how to run the best spas in the world.
And unsurprisingly, they were founded in Asia.
And we had actually, on one of our island hops in this trip, we were heading over to Java to stay in an Aman, the one which is on the Bora Bora complex. And UNESCO let them put it on a World Heritage Site. and there was a bit of a disaster because there was a huge earthquake, as there frequently is in that Pacific Rim of Fire. Indonesia is incredibly earthquake prone. Like when you pick up the daily newspaper, there is earthquakes every day. And Yogyakarta airport runway was no longer.
Yes, which was the end of our trip, and you wouldn't believe it, but it took me 11 more years before I got to stay in the Marne again. Kirsty, as we work with him, has been to many on training expeditions. 11 years. I'm not at all bitter, and I can assure you that having finally stayed in one in Venice this year, it was well worth the wait. Although completely different to their retreats, so I still have on my list.
Also on your holiday list for Ubud would be the Como group. Como Shambhala, the Bergerain estate, is incredible, and their Ubud as a boutique hotel is also out of this world. So, holiday list done. We were on holiday.
I mean, we do give travel agent advice, but at a cost, so...
we need to start getting a commission.
Yeah.
And so... we literally walked round a corner, and there was this corner shop full of local handicrafts, which, in honesty, there are hundreds of them.
Right opposite the local football pitch.
Yeah, I remember it literally as clear as day. And I saw a big wooden bowl. Now,
not dissimilar to a big wooden fruit bowl, hand carved, not particularly accurately carved. It had a very nice, authentic feel to it.
And I still have some spa owners I work with who have that original bowl. And no one had ever made it, possibly thinking about spa. But I wandered in, before you know it, I had one, and I was heading back to the hotel.
Checking that my massive size 13 feet fitted in it.
Making the ladies in the shop giggle. And within a few days, not only did I have one, I think we got to one point about 6 lined up in the
our
bedroom.
Hotel room, full of water, testing the feasibility of a wooden bowl.
The people cleaning our bedroom must have literally thought we were crackers.
Gone cray-cray.
It looked like some sort of witchcraft project.
It's like that M. Night Shyamalan film Signs, where the little girl collects water in case aliens come along. It was surreal at best.
They were everywhere. And in the end, I managed to get 4 of them home.
You sure it was only 4? I think it was 8.
No, it was 4
Did we
the
not have
first time.
2 bags?
Maybe we bought another bag.
Definitely bought another bag that trip.
They were beautiful, and honestly, that was the start of Spa Essentials. And once I'd found the bowl, it just literally flicked something in my mind, and instead of looking at these amazing handicraft and local craft as everyone other tourists did for exactly what they were, I started to twist them in my mind to see spa items.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
To work out, if someone could make that one, could they make it slightly differently and really make it into what I needed it to do in a spa? And basically, that just overcame the whole rest of that holiday. I was gone with a pad and a pen, literally searching for things. So much so that when we came home, I pretty much immediately booked to go back 3 months later.
Well, we put the bowls out to use in the training academy, and the response was relatively emphatic. So that was it, another excuse for another holiday. This time, apparently, Kirsty put her work head on by taking our friend. So I'm not sure quite how that panned out.
So we had a girls' trip. So the two girls went back 3 months later. But this time we went armed with the crucial sourcing trip get up. Now, when you go on a sourcing trip, this is the packing list. A spiral ring binder. A spiral ring bound book.
Still, to this day in 2017, it's a spiral ring bound book, by the way.
Beautiful coloured pens. A mini stapler, which has to be with you at all times because
cards.
Asia still works hugely with business cards, so you're always being business cards.
And a huge amount of patience.
Yeah. And some very detailed note-taking relating the JPEG images on your camera back to the right business card, to the right person, to the right price tag.
Yes,
and
I remember now.
A very common sentence that is required is, can I meet your uncle? You get used to in Asia, and it's never true, but so frequently, like, you'll often meet someone who is selling the product but isn't the original source or isn't the manufacturer. And when you ask them who it is, it's always a family member. It's always my uncle.
And at this point, I think the first time Kirsty went back, she realised that you do need a man on the ground or a lady on the ground. And I think you found someone the first trip. Obviously, over the next 3 or 4 years, we went to a number of countries.
But the key is you had to have someone that
knows the local customs, knows how to cut through the front man to find the person actually supplying it. Because if you imagine, when you think like Kirsty, when we found the sarongs, we must have found 20 different shops selling the same sarongs. So they were obviously coming from somewhere else. And as a business, you don't want to be paying retail consumer tourist price. So you got to have the right person on your side to cut through it. As good as we are haggling for one or two, when you're buying them in the hundreds and thousands, you need to know the right man or right person.
And the trip back in October 2006 was also the trip that I refer to as massage oils. Luke was well in the midst of his organic revolution at Rugby. I was starting to think seriously about product. And while I was looking around, I was coming across very beautiful aroma, local sourced Asian oils and oil products.
In fact, you did some amazing training.
Yeah, and that was when the time I went back, I signed up and went to massage school as frequently as I could and started to do different training levels, and was bringing the oils back with me, which smelt incredible. Like, you'd got jasmines and frangipans, but the trouble was I really couldn't get to the key sources of them, and my new growing desire for it to be organic and organic certified, I soon realised that Asia wasn't going to be the option for the full manufacture because they don't have the strict organic regulations that we have. They absolutely have people growing ingredients organically and using totally human-based labour as opposed to agriculture and chemicals, because ultimately they are much less developed than our agricultural systems are. But what you can't yet get is the certification badges for those farms that go with them.
So the difference between that and the Spa Essentials production is that we were able to find for all of our Spa Essentials the source, the people that make it. We've been to the factory, we've seen the standards, we've seen the good standard of living that the people working there and the way they get looked after and paid. And actually a lot of it is a community-based thing where people come and work when they need to, but there's no contracts. They're not worked hard. It's entirely up to them. If they want to come and make 50 bowls and then go on holiday, they can. So it's very relaxed, very good working style and working environment. So we always feel comfortable when we find a supplier that they're working in a nice environment. But obviously finding ingredients to put in cosmetics, given the standards in Europe, we thought was a stretch too far. But it did spark the desire to find someone that could make it, or a standard in the UK, which, as you know now, is the Soil Association. Although I'm still a bit concerned that we started a business based on Kirsty's maths.
Which is not my strongest academic subject, just for the record.
Yes.
So my bestie and I were lying in bed and we were starting to do the maths of, if we taught 8 people to do massage.
I mean, I've only heard this story secondhand from the 2 people there who can't tell it without losing it, hysterically laughing.
Still, this many
But I think the maths works out that they figured they'd have 8 people on a massage course every 6 weeks, which on average worked out, having got overly excited about their new business, that they would sell 72 bottles of massage oil a year. Which in itself would be nice, but not really enough to come home and change and pivot your business.
So, Pink's Boutique started on the basis that we were going to sell 72 bottles of massage
I'm glad to say that we have exceeded that by some way.
And that was it. So the origins of the Spa Essentials and the organic side through rugby, but also the organics in terms of manufacturing and building up the Spa Essentials range was so closely entwined. It was such an interesting period for us. We were mid-20s. We weren't yet married.
Fancy free.
Footloose and fancy free. We didn't have any children.
World was our lobster.
If I wanted to jump on a plane and go back to Indonesia, I just did. And we were early to starting to build our idea of an empire. And one of the things that you might be getting the gist of is that it didn't really start with a business plan. I walked around a corner and found a pedicure bowl. Well, it wasn't. It was a fruit bowl, a big fruit bowl. And I fell in love and I decided I was going to make it into a pedicure bowl. And that is how the entirety of Spa Essentials and Pink's Boutique proceeded. I'll be glad to tell you that the new brand, the new boys brand, which we are absolutely drowning in at the moment because we're a couple of weeks away from soft launch.
Hence why we're lying on the floor.
Hence why we're lying down.
The first chance we sat down.
That is the first business where we have genuinely written a business plan. We have genuinely done the 2 years of work and research. And I'm going to be really intrigued to see what the differences are.
But the important thing that Kirsty was saying was that obviously the natural nature of the Spa Essentials, the way they're handmade, the really boutique way they're manufactured fits perfectly with the organic nature of the Pink's Boutique products. Just didn't seem right putting, lovely certified organic skincare into plastic bowls or plastic spoons. So it really is a fantastic combination, and it's just ideal really that the Spa Essentials side has sort of taken its own course and is available across Europe now.
And it fundamentally started with wood, because what happens in Asia is they obviously have a very strong furniture market. They grow a lot of timber, and there are always lots and lots of waste elements.
Yeah.
And so people take the waste elements of the wood away from the big manufacturing of mainstream furniture, and we're carving them into little bowls, little spoons, and that is essentially where the basis of our wooden bowl and spoon range comes from. And the wood has grown into different things. So we've gone into a full copper range, a mother of pearl range,
natural resin range,
and a natural resin range. But for instance, when we first saw mother of pearl, it was actually a sink.
It was a sink with a hole in the bottom, obviously, and Kirsty instantly went, can we make that into a proper bowl? And obviously the people we were working with at the time were quite used to Kirsty at this point, seeing one thing and wanting it to be something else. And the other good thing about the people we work with is generally the answer is, yeah, can do.
That's probably one of the things that most people that love Asia love about it.
Yeah, it's a much more can-do attitude. They just see much more opportunity in things. Which is useful, because finding things is not as straightforward as you think.
The one thing that, when I talk about sourcing trips, that my spa therapists and people I meet actually kind of tend to ask me is, how exactly do you find these things? And to give you a little précis of it.
A lot of walking.
Yes. Basically, you put some very flat shoes on. So the first stage is always amazing, because basically it's shopping. So you will go to a region, to an area, and you walk around it and you look in the shops and the local stores and the markets as if you were a tourist. That is what you start to get an idea of what the market is capable of making.
What that country has to offer, what their skill set is.
So for instance, if you walk around local markets in Vietnam, you will see masses of lacquerware and masses of bamboo, whereas if you walk around Thailand, you won't see that. So you need to we kind of view it as a tourist first. Then when we've got an idea of the things we like, we will always try to find a local partner and an agent, and beautifully, really. And in honesty, it's probably is my most favourite part of my job. It is shopping, but shopping on a different level, because it's all about research, and you've got an item and then you're trying to get to the person that makes it. So,
and you're also shopping for someone else, really.
Yeah, which is quite odd. And hopefully something I think I am relatively good at. Like, I have had other people on sourcing trips with me, and they'll be saying this one, and I'm like, no. You have to have an ability, I suppose, like all buyers do, to make sure that it is going to appeal to the people you want to buy it.
That's not to say that everything she buys is a big hit. There's been a few duds.
Which do you think the worst is? Lava stone candle holders.
Yeah, probably, just because they obviously weighed a ton, and we moved them from across 3 different warehouses as we grew. Every time.
Because we still hadn't sold them all.
Yeah, every time she kept saying, no, we'll keep them. I was like, charity shop.
And as is often the way, hands down, our bestseller from the minute this started was that wooden pedicure bowl.
Yeah, it's still the best seller.
It advanced.
The thing we found.
It advanced a long way in terms of prototypes and manufacturers, and it even changed countries in the end of where it was being made, because obviously, crucially, it has to hold water.
That and sarongs, the lilac sarongs, still the #1 best-selling sarong.
What's the weirdest place on these sourcing trips that you think you've ever been? What's your outstanding memories?
Well, culturally, the weirdest or the most difficult to cope with was the restaurant we got taken to in China, which had adorned above it a picture of basically every animal they sold to eat, which would have been fine, had it been pigs and ducks and goats, but it ranged from tigers to horses to dogs.
Cat. And a rat. The rat was my favourite.
When we asked whether all these... I mean, it could have been a Chinese New Year symbol.
So there was no...
When we asked them what was on the menu, whether these things were on the menu, he just laughed and went, well, it just depends. We're like, what do you mean? He's like, well, if it's out of season and there's nothing else to eat, they might put dog on the menu.
Or if the rainfall has been good and there's lots of rats, then there'll be lots of rat on the menu.
Why waste it?
So... I have to say, I like their mentality of not wasting it. I think there's something to be taken from that. But as a British Westerner...
Well, seeing as the books we read about doing business in China says that you shouldn't turn down a meal.
Now, luckily, the people we were with were quite forgiving, and I think they kind of saw all this coming. So we walked under the signs of the dogs, rats, and into to our table and sat down. And they said they would order for us, and... they ordered duck soup.
Duck soup, but unfortunately the whole duck was in the soup, including its head.
He wasn't in it. He was sitting...
It was like something out of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
He was sitting on it. So a whole duck still sitting there without his feathers, and he had essentially been cleavered by 3 cleavers down.
That was it.
And he was in chunks.
The good news is the delicacy, which is duck brain, was the favourite of our host, so we were very magnanimous.
So I got offered it as being the guest. But watching someone open a duck's beak, pull out its brain and eat it is up there with some of the weirdest stuff I've ever done. Which is what
is so interesting about travelling, and why it's so enlightening and lets you see other people, and it's why we're discussing this recently about NARS agreeing to have their products tested on animals to go into China, because that's the rule. Culturally, animals are not revered in the same way in Asia, or particularly in China, and so testing on animals to them, if you're willing to eat a dog or a rat, testing on animals is not taboo. So it is difficult to bridge those cultural boundaries, and especially as a global brand like NARS, it's a market they felt they couldn't ignore. But at the same time, the Chinese rules are quite strict on animal testing. We would never do it. Hopefully they'll change, but they are a big market. And
they are, but it is also... It shines the light on ethics, because I would imagine at some point those rules will change, But so many supposedly ethical brands have gone into China, and PETA is taking away all of their animal testing, free from animal testing badges, quite rightly. And if animal testing is very dear to your heart, as are animals, then absolutely you should stop buying it.
And probably not go to China at all.
It's probably not the country for animal lovers fundamentally.
But it's in itself in many other ways extremely fascinating.
The other thing that
I particularly liked our unscheduled stop on our jet between
by the way,
Shanghai and Beijing.
When he says jet, this isn't your own private jet that you put down.
No, it was a proper Boeing, 737
with 300 people on board.
people on it. Scheduled flight with Chinese Airways from Shanghai airport up to Beijing. Nothing untoward about it, other than the fact that halfway they decided to stop in what can only be described as the middle of nowhere, land the plane for no reason that we could understand, disembark everyone
into a wooden hangar.
Well, yeah, literally like a World War II hangar.
Like we should have all been lined up
and then for no particular reason put us back on the plane and fly us up to Beijing. So
don't get that on British Airways, do you?
Do not get that enjoyable unscheduled stop, but it is fascinating, and
the other thing that
needs to be seen to be believed.
The other thing that's always quite interesting about our sourcing trips, and we will always try, unlike the 2006 October trip, Luke and I will always try and go together, is that as Asia goes, we are relatively odd looking, and so we've had some quite hilarious moments of literally people taking pictures of us in the streets, particularly when you tend to end up, by the time you have got to the real source, so you're at the manufacturer, you're getting the original factory, you are so far from tourist street, it's unbelievable.
You're either in the jungle or you're in the middle of a massive industrial.
The locals are incredibly shocked for a Westerner to be there, let alone a 6'4" giant with size 13 feet and pale white skin.
And a very blonde.
So, quite frequently,
Swedish looking lady.
People start running around taking pictures of the giant, or like people come and stand next to him and want their pictures taken.
Or offer me. I've been offered a great many animals in exchange for Kirsty's hand in marriage.
What was your best offer?
My favourite offer was probably from Paul in Botswana for 4 cattle, which I think was a good solid offer.
And most frequently what I tend to receive is I'm stroked. I get my arm stroked, I get my plait stroked, I get my hair stroked, because people tend to like my colour. Like if you walk into the Asian beauty market, there's still an incredible amount of emphasis on whitening beauty products.
Yeah.
And so Asian women, as a general rule, tend to get very upset when they see very pale skin on someone like myself, which they love, being exposed to sunshine. Yeah. That really upsets them.
They think you're crazy for wanting to get a tan. And actually, in terms of protecting your skin and health-wise, it's not the best thing.
And in terms of anti-aging, they have it nailed, really. They're spot on under their parasols. And so what has proceeded really since 2006 is that we started to bring back the bases, the bowls, the spoons, the trays, sarongs. And then we started to build up the range, and we were literally bringing them back in our suitcases to begin with. We then proceeded to what you call LCL in freight world, which is boxes.
Boxes within a container.
Also
until you get big enough.
Known as hippo crates.
If you've seen us on social media over the last year or so, you will have seen us at some point unloading what looked like crates from the film Madagascar, and it's always disappointing when they only have sarongs in.
And Marty the zebra doesn't pop out.
Yeah, I know. A talking zebra would be much cooler. but then we progress, as we have, into full containers.
So we now get the big kind of Maersk container ships, and it is still, exciting. To this day, 10 years on, so exciting. It's so amazing when something that you have seen so many miles and countries away.
And so out of context. I mean, when we see it, it's not a spa bowl or a wall hanging. It's something completely different.
Until we've modified it. And we do that. So we will be doing, and we do now, quite a lot of design. Like the source trips tend to be the inspiration, and then we will tweak and alter. The other thing now is, having done this for so long, we now will design things here and we actually send them over now to the factories and manufacturers we work with. So complete bespoke designs. I've just done a stand for the 4Boys products.
We did some stuff for a spa chain in Dubai.
Amazingly, I got like a DHL notification today. This thing I literally drew with a ruler on a piece of paper in my office is already on its way with DHL to get to me. And there's something mesmerising about that process, and still something incredibly exciting. We walked through the centre of Nottingham the other day, past an Aveda salon, I think, and they had one of our brown and orange sarongs in there.
It's a pretty cool feeling.
An amazing feeling when you can remember exactly where you were at source, and you know the people involved, and they end up in such random places all over the shop.
Literally. To the extent where we enjoy doing it so much that, having listened to or read the Tim Ferriss book, The 4-Hour Work Week, comes highly recommended in this family.
It's really been very, very life-altering to us. A friend who in
fact we met in Bali.
On that 2006 trip, was it that one?
That was the next one.
They own a beautiful homeware company called Bombay Duck, and had read The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. And if you do own your own business, as I know a lot of salon and spa owners do, it is really worth a read.
And in fact, it translates to any job, because ultimately it's about making your life efficient so you can enjoy more of it now and scrap the idea of waiting until retirement.
And he has a really interesting base philosophy, which is, we've all got it wrong. We're all working really hard till we retire. And his point is that if you have your own business particularly and like work, that when you retire, either you sit on a beach for 2 weeks and get very quickly bored and then find yourself running a local beach bar, or unfortunately you don't make retirement, or you make retirement and it ends quite quickly. He just says it's not how it should be, and that he's a mass advocate of mini relocations every year.
So that's it. That's the advice we took of all the stuff he suggested. Going on holiday for 4 weeks a year, relocating was what we chose. And actually, in seriousness, it is a perfect opportunity to go to a new country, spend some proper time engaging with the culture, finding some new stuff for a business that we love, giving the children a chance to see a different side of the world, a different culture. It's hugely educational for them. It's obviously a lot of good fun, and more often than not, we either come back with new things for Spa Essentials or new business ideas. And
I'm going to end with one last thought. In our partnership and relationship, Luke is normally the one that is utterly thoughtful and always trying to look for different quotes and mantras and ways to live. But very recently I've been thinking about this a lot. For those of you who work for yourselves, particularly relevant, but also if you work for someone else, you don't really know how it's going to end up. Like, you dream of the promotions, you dream of how big the business is going to be. But I've seen some incredibly successful businesses become massive and achieve that dream, and then something go wrong. Like Blockbuster. Who would have thought when we were all teenagers that Blockbuster would go so wrong? But you have to enjoy the journey. You have to enjoy what you're doing every day and every week. And Spa Essentials really for us is a massive part of Pink's Boutique, probably really truly because of that, because it really adds that element to our life as well.
And who doesn't need an excuse for another holiday?
So we hope that today we have explained for you what Spa Essentials is. You now know our motivations of why we love it, and please make sure, if you haven't, have a look on pinksboutique.com. There is a decor tab in the navigation bar, and you will find all of the finishing touches that you need for your salon and spa in multiple different materials, all handmade, hand produced, and ethically sourced.
Thanks again for listening. This has been Luke and Kirsty on the Pinks